Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Cook with OC program today. Before we begin today's webinar, Osteoporosis Canada acknowledges the land that our offices, located in Toronto, are on, is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. My name is Tracie Napoli, Director of Fund Development and MARCOM at Osteoporosis Canada, and I will be your host for today. This webinar will provide general information about cooking and food knowledge, and it's not intended as individualized health or nutrition advice, but if you have questions about nutrition, consult a physician or registered dietitian. Now, during the webinar, we want to hear from you. So if you have a question or comment, you can click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen or in the chat and enter it there. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can during the webinar within the time available. One key component to optimizing bone health and reducing the risks for osteoporosis is by focusing on nutrition and making food choices containing the bone-building nutrients needed to keep bones strong and healthy, including calcium, which is a key mineral supporting new bone formation, when also helps maintain strong bones, vitamin D, which ensures our bodies can absorb enough calcium to keep bones strong and supports muscle function. Protein is necessary to build and repair bone tissue and helps keep muscles strong. Magnesium helps our body use vitamin D, which is important for calcium absorption, and vitamin K activates a protein that helps build bone and bind minerals, such as calcium, to the bone structure. Osteoporosis Canada recommends that whenever possible, to get nutrients through food sources. So, we're trying to give some kitchen and cooking tips to help you make good food choices and help prepare meals with bone-building nutrients. And we do this during the webinar, but we wanted to kind of summarize it in advance. We want to have a meal plan. It helps us in making good food choices for bone health and overall health. It also helps reduce the amount of food waste. And we want to pay attention to those best before and expiry dates. It helps reduce the stress of cooking at the last minute, and it's also budget friendly. A well-stocked pantry, freezer, or refrigerator helps you ensure to get the bone-building nutrients you need, and it doesn't all have to happen all at the same time. If you see an item on sale at your local grocery store, check it out and pick it up when you can. Don't buy everything at once. Purchase when you can, and then pop it into your pantry, freezer, refrigerator, and purchase versatile items that you can use in multiple ways. It's also important to make cooking accessible for everyone. So don't do everything at one time. If you can't, you can break up a recipe throughout the day. If if standing is too much, you can also try sitting at the kitchen table or at the counter. And of course, when you can, always ask for help. We wanted to also provide a few ingredients that fit into that pantry, refrigerator, and freezer staple category, things that you can look for and keep on hand that you can use in a variety of different ways, everything from canned fish or meats, powdered milk, evaporated milk, nut and seed butters in the refrigerator, milk, plain yogurt, produce like apples, oranges, celery, carrots, condiments, freezer, ground beef or turkey, bread even, pop it into the freezer, nuts, and vegetables like spinach, peas, mixed vegetables, fruit, and also filled pasta, pierogies, and gnocchi. These are all things that we've talked about in a lot of our different cooking demos. And so we're going to use a few of these ingredients today. Our featured recipe for today is salmon and chickpea patties, and each serving has 12 grams of protein and 150 milligrams of calcium. Now, did you know that canned salmon and actually also sardines with the bones are both a source of protein and calcium? But In order to get that calcium from canned salmon and sardines, you have to eat the bones. And this recipe will show you how you can easily do that so that it's also delicious, which is something we want to make sure everything we're preparing is delicious. Now, I would like to welcome our friend, Emily Richards, a professional home economist, freelance food writer, chef, and she is the author and co-author of 11 cookbooks. Emily also writes and develops recipes for print and online publications that include everyday cooking and healthy eating, and she can be found on TV, radio, and webcasts, just like this one. Let's welcome Emily. Hello, Emily.
Hey Tracy, how you doing?
I am well, and I'm excited. And, I love this recipe for many reasons, but one of them is because when we started the Cook with OC program many years ago, this was actually one of the first batch of recipes that we developed. And it's great because, especially during the pandemic where everyone was looking for, pantry staple recipes, this was great to cook then. It's great to cook now. And it is good. I did. Emily made it for me and I ate it. So I know firsthand that it's really delicious. And before we get started, also, we're giving away that apron. So if you're on the webinar at the end that Emily is nicely modeling, we'll draw your name and we'll announce it at the end. But Emily, salmon and chickpea patties, here we go.
Yes, here we go. And I used my can opener. That's a tool that is very important in this recipe since you have to both open the chickpeas and the salmon. And lucky me, when I went to the grocery store to pick up the ingredients, salmon was on sale. So I actually got 2 cans so that I can incorporate it into another recipe later this week or next week or beyond, who knows. And Tracy is so right. This was and continues to be a popular recipe for so many reasons. If you like salmon, it is a great way to keep salmon on hand. If you don't have it in the freezer, as a fresh salmon, canned salmon is fabulous in sandwiches, one of my favorites. It's great in pastas, and here it showcases it in a patty. So the first thing I'm going to do is drain my salmon. So I just use my can opener, and I'm going to go over to the sink. And if you want, you can actually reserve some. I have friends that have cats, and they say that they save the salmon juice for their cats to put on their food. So I don't have cats. The dogs aren't salmon lovers, so that's okay. And then for the chickpeas, I want to drain those as well. And you can actually save the canning liquid as well. So you can drain it and you can freeze this if you want. If you've heard the term aquafaba, that's exactly what this is. So you can, if you're looking for a vegan meringue, and there's a lot in there too, so that's kind of nice. And you can beat it up and make some lovely cookies and meringue. So I'm going to take this to the sink and rinse off my chickpeas. So you'll find the canned products in your grocery stores with lots of different labeling. For this recipe, if you happen to find the no salt added chickpeas, you can use them. They're not always easy to find, so you could just use a regular can of chickpeas. And by rinsing them off with the cold water here, I'm just looking to have the bubbles subside so that they're not all bubbly, okay? And that kind of helps rinse away some of that little bit of canned flavor from the chickpeas. And I'm just going to bring those back over here, and I'm going to put them into my bowl. So I have my recipe in front of me because as simple as this recipe is, I tend to forget what I'm putting in, and I don't want to do that. So, and if you don't have the recipe handy, don't worry, you can go to the Osteoporosis website and grab it, but you should all have it in your email, so very, very accessible. And as Tracy mentioned, if you have any questions about any of the ingredients or what we're doing today together, feel free to send it along, and then Tracy will get me to answer those questions. So thanks again for joining us this afternoon. And I think easy, simple recipes is what a lot of people are looking for. And we'll talk about kind of make-aheads and things like that. So even though this recipe is super simple, there will be some components that you may want to make ahead just to suit your lifestyle, okay? So I'm going to add my chickpeas in here like that. And I'm going to add my canned salmon. So here's where we're going to talk about those bones that Tracie was talking about, okay, in the can itself. So I'm going to hold this kind of close up to this camera here. And if you take a close look at it, you can actually see that little bit of salmon bone in there. So as it's cooked in the can and pressured, everything gets really, really soft. So you can actually mash this in together with the rest of the mixture, and you'll be able to incorporate it right into the patty, which is fabulous because it gives us the benefit of the calcium, okay? So I'm going to just use a fork first to break it up a little bit right in the bowl, okay? And then what I'm going to do is move to my potato masher. So if you want to make sure that you get everything in that salmon, you can do it on a separate plate and then just mash it with a fork initially, okay? And then add it into your chickpeas. But I'm going to do it right into one bowl so that I have just a little less dishes to do after. Okay, so this is my potato masher, and I'm just going to go in with my potato masher to get a nice kind of consistency of the chickpeas. Now, if you're already looking at this and saying, you know what, Emily, I don't like using my potato masher, it's a little too hard on my wrist, what you can do is actually put the chickpeas in a food processor and give them a pulse, okay, so that they break up and mash up. And then you can add your salmon in there too and do the same thing. I'm not looking for a smooth puree because I do want a little bit of texture in these patties because it is really nice that way. But that can help you out, okay? Or if you have a little food chopper, that will work too. I do want to talk about canned chickpeas because it is something that, depending on the brand you buy, they can be a little bit firmer than others. So, and I can't say this brand or that brand because it varies across the country. So what I recommend is that if you love chickpeas and you like to keep them in your pantry, buy a few different brands and test them out, because one will be great for hummus, one will be great for chickpea patties, one will be great to drain and just add to salads. So the texture here is really what will be a little bit different, okay? So, and then you can just keep note that whatever brand was mashable, you'll want to use in this type of recipe or save it for your hummus as well, okay? So I'm going to use my fork just to get a little bit more mashing happening. And then really it's about the simplicity of flavors here. So we are going to add just a few other kind of pantry staples, and you can change it up. I love dill. Some people like thyme, some people like marjoram, but you can use whichever you like, okay? Now we are using dried herbs and spices today because that goes kind of with the theme of having everything in the pantry, okay? Now, if some of you are wondering what these little chickpea skins are, they are the skins of the chickpeas. And if you have the time and patience, you can pop them off. I don't mind them. For me, it's not a texture issue. I know for some people, they're not a fan. So you can just rub them off gently and you can remove the chickpea skins, okay? Now, one question that comes up with chickpeas as well is, can I cook my own? Of course you can. You can purchase dried chickpeas, soak them, and then cook them. And then you can freeze them and pull them out as you need them. For this recipe, you'll need 2 cups of those cooked chickpeas, okay? And for the salmon, we're really benefiting here from the fact that it's canned and that the bones are in there in the can as well. That's really what's helping us with the calcium in the recipe as well as the protein. So I'm going to throw Tracie in here for a second because I know this comes up a lot as a substitution. And, you know, I know you can definitely use fresh salmon here, but one of the things that's really important, which both Tracie and I have mentioned, is that calcium. So do you want to chat about that, Tracie, just
Yes.
the fresh salmon?
Yeah, so I did want to make a note of this. The reason why we only speak to, sardines or canned salmon with the bones, both of those have the bones in the can, is because they're softened. It is not safe to consume bones in fresh salmon or other fish. You could damage your esophagus. But as Emily stated, the canning process has softened them. And then when you mush them up, because you know, I've had a few people tell me when we were sharing, we were doing this recipe, and they're like, oh, I don't like canned salmon, and I throw out all the bones, even if I do eat it. So this is why we actually developed this recipe. There's actually another recipe on the website, which is a salmon noodle casserole, which we had also done a cooking demo for. And honestly, when you mix everything in, it really tastes good. And it's because you're mixing all these other ingredients in there. But we do want to caution that this is not like all fish, all salmon. So somebody's just actually just made a note here that yes, that's why she's avoided buying canned salmon. She was worried about consuming the bones. And somebody did ask a quick question, Emily, are you using pink or red salmon? Does it change the flavor a lot if you're doing that?
That's a great question. I'll show you the can that I'm using. So because it was on sale, I'm using the cloverleaf sockeye salmon, which is wild red Pacific salmon. So most of the salmon that is canned, oh, excuse me, is red or pink. And there is a little bit of a price difference. And so I usually buy what's on sale. And flavor wise, I'm okay with both. But again, if you are kind of just diving into canned salmon and you really want to test the waters, you can very easily just buy a can of each. Again, wait for when they're on sale if that's easier, and then taste them, because you could these great salmon salad sandwiches, so you can use it up either way, and just kind of get the flavor so that you're enjoying it. Now here we're going to have a few other flavors going around in with it. So the dill is going to come through. We're going to add a little bit of heat with some hot pepper flakes. And so fresh herbs, I think, whether it's pink or red salmon, are absolutely delicious. So, and that's really where it is a little bit of a personal preference. So today I'm driven by price. Can you believe that? A budget-friendly recipe driven by price? It makes total sense. And the chickpeas were on sale too. They were 99 cents a can. So I was pretty happy about that. So I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients. And again, you can play around here if you want. This is green onions. Just that nice little bit of freshness goes in here. If you're not a green onion fan, you can leave them out. They do add a nice little bit of color, but you want a little bit more freshness in here. So some chopped parsley would be nice. If you had fresh dill, that would be fabulous in here. You could also use a little bit just of minced regular onion if that's all you had. Okay, just to give it that nice little bit of onion flavor. We're not eating these raw, remember, we are going to be cooking them so that it will soften a little bit. We're also going to add a little bit of garlic. So this recipe has 3 cloves of garlic. We're going to divide and use half. Okay, so I've minced it all. I'm just going to take about half of the minced garlic and add it to the mixture here. And then I'm going to save the rest for the spinach because I want that to taste good too. And then I am going to add a little bit of mayonnaise in here, just a couple tablespoons. That's going to add a little bit of moisture. And I actually really like the flavor of mayonnaise. It adds a little bit of sweetness, but you could very easily use a Greek yogurt here. Okay, that would add a little bit more tang to it, which is really nice to brighten up the fish as whoop-a-daisy. So I'm going to add my dill. So I'm using dill weed. So it is basically that nice light feathery dill, fresh dill, dried. So it has that wonderful aroma of dill. And because it's dried, it does have a little bit of a potency to it. So I'm only using a 1/4 teaspoon. But if you want to use a little bit more, you definitely can. If you had that fresh dill, maybe, you know, as the gardens are coming through, hopefully strongly, and all your fresh herbs are coming in, you could actually, you know, triple the amount of fresh herbs. So if you were using fresh dill, I'd actually use a couple teaspoons in here just to brighten it up and get a wonderful flavor. Now, how many of you like lemon and salmon? That's a favorite of mine. If you happen to have a lemon kicking around, take a little bit of the lemon rind and add that in here too. It would be absolutely delicious. So you could kind of change it up and brighten it as you see fit. So I'm just going to kind of bring this together here. Okay. And we're going to make some patties. That's all we need in here. Okay. So I'm just going to get my hands in here. And if you want, this is also when you can kind of go in, and if there's any little bits of chickpeas that you want a little bit smaller, you can just kind of use your fingers in there, okay, and mash them up. But I'm going to make 6 patties here, so I'm kind of just going to eyeball it, divide it in half, and then take each half and make 3, okay? I'm going to make them into a little ball first. And I actually like leaving a little bit of the chickpeas whole because it adds a nice little bit of texture. Okay. So there's my.
There was a question about sardines, I heard you say.
Yes, a few people are asking if they wanted to use canned sardines, would this be a recipe that they could do that?
You can. What I would do is actually use a combination of sardines and salmon, just to kind of blend the flavor a little bit. If you wanted to use all canned sardines, you might want to amp up a little bit more of the herbs, just because sometimes the sardines come across as a little bit stronger tasting, and as well as a little bit, sometimes I find them a little bit saltier than canned salmon. So if you wanted to mash them up, or again, put them in your food processor, and you can actually season those first if you wanted to add the dill and a little bit of the hot pepper flakes in there to start. I think I was
Perfect. You're good. We can see you. We can hear you. It's all good. I know this is the good and the bad of technology. It's all good. We do have, so somebody asked, did you put the skin, the salmon skin that was in the can also in the bowl?
I did. I did use the skin. I was wondering if that would come up as a question, if anyone noticed in my bowl.
Somebody asked. Yep, they did. Honestly, when you mix this all together, and this is why the recipes here, I'm actually going to pop my video on, because then when you mix the salmon in these recipes, this is where you will eat more of it because it tastes so good. And in the other recipes we have on the website with canned salmon, that's why we did it. There was a question, you know, if you prefer tuna, canned tuna. So here's the thing, and this is, we say this every cooking demo.
This is Tracie's favorite line.
This is my favorite thing. It's not going to make or break you for one meal, but you just need to kind of figure out where you're at. So you're not going to get, so the calcium in this recipe is coming from the bones that you're going to eat in the canned salmon, but also from the chickpeas. The chickpeas also have calcium and also have protein. But if you want to use tuna, that's fine. You just need to make sure that you're consuming other foods with calcium throughout the day, throughout the week. So, you know, that's completely fine. This recipe is probably one of the most versatile recipes we have on the website because you can pretty much interchange most things. Even we're getting asked about the bran flakes. So if you don't have bran flakes on hand and you have breadcrumbs or panko, or I'm just trying to think what else, Emily. Oh, like
Cornflakes.
Cornflakes, that would be tasty. Because Emily right now she's crushing the bran flakes with her. This is also, you don't need fancy tools for this recipe. You're using hands, you need a fry pan, a bowl, and a can opener. You do need a can opener.
It's very therapeutic right now, just me, you know, thinking about crushing this bran flakes and why my, you know, technology is not working where it should be.
I know it's good stress release. And a few people are also asking, I put the recipe link in the chat. We are recording this. You will get the replay by the end of the week. So there is that. And I'm just looking at the questions. Let's just see here. Yes, somebody asked when Emily was speaking about the mayonnaise, and she said, if you don't have mayonnaise or you don't want to use it, you can substitute Greek yogurt, plain Greek yogurt. Yes, you can do that.
Yes,
absolutely. All right, let's coat some patties and get them cooking.
Patties. So you want to make sure to crush your bran flakes, and as Tracie mentioned, you can use whatever you have on hand. So up until now, this is gluten-free. So if you have a gluten-free family member, you can use a gluten-free corn-based cereal, or you could use gluten-free breadcrumbs. So again, this just adds a little bit of texture to the outside of the patty. Okay, so what you're going to do is take your patty and shape it into whatever size you like. If you want them a little bit thicker so that they're a little bit moist and more moist inside, you can leave them a bit thicker. You can make them a bit flatter, okay? And then I'm just going to cover them. I like to roll them around a little bit, just like that, and get just a little bit of crunch. Now, if you're wondering why I'm doing this, this goes back to when one of my sons was younger, and he, believe it or not, did not like meatballs. And for those of you that know my background, I'm Italian. So if you have a child that doesn't like meatballs, that could be devastating. So what I ended up doing is trying to figure out, why doesn't he like these meatballs? And it was a texture thing. He didn't like how soft they were. So what I ended up doing was coating them in cornflakes and giving them that little crunch. And that kind of stuck. He does eat regular meatballs now, just FYI. I don't have to continue to do that, but I loved that texture. I loved having that little bit of crunch on the outside and that tenderness on the inside. And it works so well for so many different recipes and different ingredients. So I took that, and not only with this one are you getting that little bit of crunch, you're also getting the benefit of a little added fiber from those bran flakes. And bran flakes do have a little bit of sweetness to them as well. So it is nice to have that little hint of sweetness in there as well. Okay, so I'm just gonna, I'm making about 6 patties. If you want bigger patties, you could make 4, but I'm doing 6 kind of more normal size, I guess you could say, patties. So just kind of rolling them around. And then I find it easier to do this and put them on a baking sheet and then get them into the oven. But if you wanted to pan fry them, what I would recommend is that you shape them, and before you put the bran flakes coating on them, and pop them in the fridge for a little bit, just so that they chill and set. And you can, it's a great make ahead. You could do this even the night before if you wanted to, okay? And leave it in the fridge. Make sure you wrap it, or the whole fridge will smell like salmon. And then you can just coat them and then pan fry them. So it just gives that opportunity for everything to come together nice and easily after being in the refrigerator. So I'm just gonna give my hands a wash again. And I've already got my oven heating at 425. Oopsie daisy. And the other reason why I wanted to put these in the oven is so that I can continue cooking. Instead of using a second skillet, I'm using a baking sheet going into the oven. Now, if you do want them a little bit more golden, the hot oven, 425, will give us a nice golden brown color. But you can also take a little bit of a neutral oil and put a little drizzle on top, or if you have a cooking spray, you could just do that. Totally up to you. It's not necessary at all, but if you want to, you can do that. Okay, so I'm gonna put these in the oven, and we're gonna saute our spinach with the rest of that garlic. So you can see I have very little ingredients here because, well, there's not a lot to this recipe, which is one of the reasons why I love it. So spinach. I love talking about spinach. Tracie's going to tell us a little bit more about spinach in a minute. However, this is those big tubs that you get at the grocery store, 11 ounces, which was also on sale. So I was happy about that. It's about 300 grams of spinach. So this cooks down to, as you all know, a small amount. So if you want to kind of get a step ahead and not do this process of wilting the spinach, you could actually purchase some frozen spinach. They usually come in 300 and 500 gram bags, and just warm it up with the garlic so that this wilting, it just takes a little less time. It does happen a bit quicker if you thaw the frozen spinach. All right, so I have this nice big skillet that I'm going to use. And remember that little bit of garlic here. So what I did was I washed the spinach, and then if you take a look closely, there's still water kind of clinging to the leaves, and that's really what's going to help wilt the spinach itself and add a little bit of moisture to the pan. So I don't need to add additional oil to it because I just want to wilt it so that it softens and gives us a nice little base for our patties, okay? So spinach comes up often when we talk about calcium, and I said to Tracie, I said, we need to tell everybody about spinach and calcium. So Tracie, this is your cue.
Hi, sorry. I'm scrolling through some stuff. Yes. So, there are foods that have calcium, like spinach, Swiss chard, sesame seeds, but due to the high oxalate content, it doesn't actually absorb. So good for other nutrients. It's great for other nutrients that you need, but in terms of counting it towards your calcium, spinach is not one of the foods that we would do that with, but it's a delicious complement to the recipe, and that's why we used it. And let me just say that this is one of many different ways you can serve up this this recipe, but it makes for a nice, like having the sautéed spinach with the salmon and chickpea patty actually is quite delicious together. And like I said, spinach is good for you for a whole bunch of other reasons. Emily, we do have interestingly, we had about 2 or 3 questions on the same topic. Those people were asking, like, you didn't add an egg to bind the mixture. If you're struggling to get them in patties, could you, or do you really not need to, but putting them in the refrigerator maybe helps kind of pack everything together?
And the reason why I started off talking about the texture of the chickpeas, that really is kind of the make or break of the patties. So if you have a really firm chickpea and it doesn't kind of mash in, it'll be hard for you to create that patty shape. So you can very easily just pop that into the food processor and, you know, pulse it so it comes together a little bit more, and just keep going with the recipe. But if you wanted to, you could definitely add an egg to this recipe. There's no reason why you can't. It will actually add more protein, which is fabulous, to it. And if you want to have it a little bit firmer, I love seafood patties, crab cakes, fish patties, salmon patties, but I don't like when they're really, really firm. I like when you break into them and they just kind of fall apart. Fish is naturally, when you cook it, it has that nice flakiness to it. And I love that texture. And so that's what I'm playing on in this recipe. But if you're looking for a firmer patty, those are the 2 ways that you can create that firmer texture, by putting the everything in the food processor. Sorry, my spinach is wilting down as I leave it here. So you can put it in the food processor and pulse it a little bit more finely, or yes, you can add an egg to it. What may happen though is it may get a little kind of too soft, and then you might have to add some of those bran flakes in there or some breadcrumbs in there. So it ends up being a little bit of a, you know, you're playing with it to get the texture you want. And that's okay. I mean, I love having fun in the kitchen. And if you are looking for a certain texture, this is a recipe that really works to the advantage of doing that and being able to change the texture to what you and your family might like. So that's what's great about the accessibility of this recipe. And you can see it doesn't take very long for the spinach to wilt. And I didn't add anything else. That little bit of time kind of steams the garlic onto our spinach as well. So if you wanted to, you could add some fresh herbs to this to enhance kind of the dill flavor. So you could add a little bit of the dry dill. If you like it spicy, you could add some of that hot pepper flakes in there too and cook it in with it. And then you can season this as you like. I kind of like the simplicity of the garlic and the spinach because we have the big flavor of the salmon, the canned salmon coming through, which is really nice. So if you wanted a pinch of salt and pepper in here, you could add that as well. But you could also serve this patty 1,000 different ways. Well, maybe not 1,000. That might be pushing it. But we're going to enjoy it just on the spinach greens. But this could also be kale. This could be Swiss chard. This could be rapini. This could be some broccoli. This could be frozen green vegetables that you have in the freezer. Green beans are a great one. So you can kind of change it up to what you happen to have that is suited to what's in your pantry. So what Tracie was talking about before we even got started, and having all those things available to you to change it up. So we're going to have it kind of as just a nice little meal with the patties and the spinach, but you could also take it and turn it into a sandwich if you wanted it on a bun, for example. You could have a nice little bit of lemon mayonnaise on top of it and have it with lettuce and tomato. You could also put it into half a pita and enjoy it that way with some veggies. I've also eaten them cold because I needed to just take it and go. And I just put it in a container and broke it up and ate it in the car. I've also broken it up cold and put it onto a green salad to have it as a salmon salad, but a little bit different and a little bit more, it bumped up the healthiness of it with the chickpeas in there and also the fiber, which was really nice. I don't know if anyone asked this question, Tracie, but I know sometimes as a substitution, not everybody has chickpeas on hand. And the question of using other canned beans comes into play. Chickpeas have, as I said earlier, that some of them have that firmer texture to them. So if you want this again to be a little bit of a softer patty, white kidney beans are a great option, or cannellini beans or Romano beans to create that softness that will work really nicely with the canned salmon as well. If you want to be a little bit funky, some black beans would be nice in there to kind of change the color up a little bit, or red kidney beans too. So it's really about, opening up your pantry and saying, hey, what do I have in here? And creating this lovely meal that doesn't break the bank, which is really nice.
Absolutely. Hey, Emily, I was just going to say,
Yeah.
so the note on the beans, yes, thank you for addressing that. But just know, so we did this recipe tested with these specific ingredients. And I know some people are asking, if I use sardines and I mix it in, how many sardines should I use? So Emily, we did not test, right, with the sardines. And so
we didn't. I've had sardines on hand and I've mashed them up and added them to the salmon, but I haven't done a specific all sardines versus all salmon.
Yeah. So part of this, I think, is also as you go through it and you get comfortable with the ingredients. So let's say, like Emily said, it was a little too wet because maybe you used a creamier bean, like a cannellini bean. You could add a little bit of the bran flakes in, or some breadcrumbs in to the mixture. So it kind of absorbs some of that moisture. There is a question, Emily. So a couple of people have said, one question was is panko better or some bran flakes? It's not really what's better. I think it's what's also what you have on hand. If you're having cereal, that's one item. Panko, unless you're breading things, you'd have to purchase another item. But it's also the texture, because another person asked about oat bran. Oat bran is different than bran flakes, and I'm not sure if it's going to create that same outer kind of crispy breading crust.
So I usually compare oat bran to wheat germ in that category because it's a little bit finer. Bran flakes are a wheat bran, and oat bran is based on the oat, right? The oat flakes. So it will still give you a little bit of texture, but it won't be kind of as crisp or crunchy as a flake, like a bran flake or a corn flake cereal, that is. And that's where panko breadcrumbs, which are the whites of the bread that are a little bit puffed, create that similar texture to it. So that's really kind of the background of why I use the bran flakes. And I always have bran flakes. I make muffins with bran flakes. I coat chicken legs with bran flakes. I eat it as a cereal. So I always have it on hand. So that's something that I commonly use. But I also do have panko breadcrumbs. Oat bran is great. You could actually add some of the, if you love oat bran, you could actually add some right to the patty itself. Same with wheat germ, same with flax. Just a couple tablespoons in there is really all you need for the texture, because if you add too much, then it'll become a little bit dry, that's all.
So somebody has shared what they add to their salmon chickpea patty, and Robert has shared that he adds dried cranberries and chopped dill pickle.
Oh, dill pickle, I love
dill pickle. Awesome. And I love dried cranberries. And it's up to you if you want to put them both in, because that's what you enjoy. So if you want to add other things to this, this is, again, we talk about this all the time. Now, the one thing I haven't asked you, because I ask almost every recipe, can you freeze these? Because we love to put things into the freezer. Can we freeze them? I'm not sure, actually.
No, I don't. So this is one that I wouldn't necessarily freeze. It's not really a necessity, mainly because it's so quick. But if it's a matter of, you're making 6 patties and you only need 2, you can keep them in the refrigerator for a couple of days and incorporate them differently, like I suggested, some of those other ways, like on a salad and in a pita. What ends up happening with these, and again, it doesn't have a lot of the binding that we talked about, and it doesn't have a lot of fat in there to kind of keep that texture. So putting it in the freezer and taking it out, it will fall apart, and the texture will be different. It'll still taste okay. It just won't be really a patty anymore. That's all. So if in need, if you just, day 2 came and you thought, oh, I can't get through these 2 patties, pop them in the freezer for sure, because we don't want to have any food waste. But then when you take them out, maybe let them thaw and break them up and use them in a salad, or you can mash them up with a little bit more mayonnaise and make a great salmon chickpea sandwich. It'd be absolutely delicious. With dill pickle, I might add. That's awesome.
If you're a fan of pickles like we are, that was great, Robert. Thank you for sharing that, especially with the dried dill that you've already put, or the fresh dill if you're using it.
100%.
I'm just checking here.
Are there any more?
Sorry. Oh, you're getting a plate. Yes, because now I know. Are they almost ready?
I didn't put the timer on, so.
Oh,
That's on me. That's my own
as
fault.
someone who's burned a few things, I do advise that you put the timer on, because I will walk away and completely forget.
So
Emily, oh wow, look at that. Let's look at that, Roy.
So they just have that nice little bit of golden brown color on top. Okay, right here, the bran flake, and you can start to see anything that kind of fell off got a little bit more golden, which is perfect. And because there's no raw ingredients in here, you really want to heat these through so that you get the benefit of having a nice warm chickpea patty. But as I said, I have eaten them cold, and they're delicious as well. Were you going to say something, Tracie? I feel like I cut you off.
No, that's okay. They look so good, and Emily's going to plate it up. But this recipe, what's really interesting, it's interesting when we do different recipes, kind of the feedback we get, the ideas that people are sending me now, and the questions about, switching in or adding into this ingredient is fantastic. So, I mean, because that's really what cooking is, right? And someone just said, I think adding Dijon mustard would be nice in there, which it would be. Now, I'm with Emily. I love Emily. I do love Emily, but I love lemon, actually. That's what I meant to say. So I would like a fresh squeeze of lemon on the top of mine. Somebody also asked if you could add chia seeds.
Oh, that would be lovely. And that actually, because chia seeds will absorb a little bit more of the moisture, that if you are looking for a firmer texture, that will work out really well too. Okay.
Yes. And also the last one, could you use lentils?
Oh, yes.
It's a different legume, right? But I think, yeah, absolutely.
It would work, and it's actually a little bit softer. So when you mash the lentils, I find that the texture is a little bit more similar to the salmon itself. So it will be a more unified patty. So definitely, but you can use lentils for sure. And again, canned, or if you want to cook your own, you can use them either way.
Absolutely. And, just think about, like, when you're cooking a fillet of salmon, you may cook it using certain spices, certain herbs. There's no reason why you can't use those same flavors in this chickpea. I'm just wondering what are you getting, Emily?
I'm getting some lemon.
I thought that's what you were going to get. Well, here, let's take a shot, because we always need Emily to like do that shot, that taste test too.
Half a lemon here. But this is something that if you ordered it in a restaurant, they would charge you a lot of money for this.
Exactly.
You could make 6 of them for probably, what you would pay in a restaurant, which is
exactly.
So it's a little bit easier. And then I'm just going to give a little squeeze of lemon
That
here.
looks so delicious. We wish we were all tasting it now. That looks good. Emily's going to try it for us. And, we did talk about other ways. Like, if you don't like spinach, you don't need to make the spinach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, I like texture too, so I like the fact that there's pieces of chickpea and
Yeah, and it just has that little bit of
crispy.
crunch on the outside, but it's nice and tender on the inside. So it breaks apart really nicely. It's not kind of,
It's not dense.
and it's not dense.
It's
So,
not dense.
and that was really my goal, was to not have it super dense.
And a few people have asked, like, what do we classify as a neutral oil? So basically something that doesn't have, like, olive oil has flavor, but if you have olive oil and you like olive oil or avocado oil, you can go ahead. Generally, we refer to like canola oil as a
And vegetable oil is
vegetable oil.
as well.
You
So
can use, yeah.
anything that doesn't have a flavor. So think of what you would bake with, and not. And when I say that, I don't mean you're making an olive oil cake, because that's an olive oil cake. But let's say in muffins and things like that, where you don't want that flavor of the oil to come through. So that's a neutral oil.
Exactly. And I love the fact that, now it's also like, the weather's getting warmer, the days are getting longer, and you're like, hey, let's head out, let's pack some snacks or a lunch up. This in a bun or a wrap, you know what? Like, how fabulous is that? And it's really quick, and you just put it together. Or if people are out, out hanging out, and you're feeding a bunch of people, this is a really affordable meal. And I think that's what we really love with that. So yeah, I mean, I'm just checking to see if we have any, let me just check right here. I think I answered the main questions for this, but if you do like the idea of using the canned salmon with the bones, there is another recipe, like I said, on the website. We encourage you to look at that. But let's talk about who's getting that lovely apron. I'm going to, because I forgot the last two cooking demos, I think, to announce it on. So Suzanne Ludowitzki from St. Albert, Alberta. Congratulations from St. Albert, Alberta.
Tracie, let her know that she's not getting the one I dirtied.
No.
She's a brand new one.
Exactly. We're not doing that yet. You're going to get, I will contact you. A few people are saying they're going to make it for dinner tonight. So that's super. And Emily, thank you. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. And I just want to share. So we have other recipes. These recipes that I've chosen right here, they have a small amount of ingredients, things that you can kind of, again, put in your pantry, refrigerator, or freezer. These recipes, along with a whole bunch of other ones, are available at osteoporosis.ca/recipes. Emily and I are in the process. We are developing a whole new slew of recipes, and those will be on the website in the coming weeks. So you want to be sure to check back for them. Also, you can calculate your calcium on the website. We have podcasts, a blog, and we are recording this like we record our other webinars. So you will get this, I think I did say, by the end of the week. But you can also check out our other recorded webinars at osteoporosis.ca. And as always, we want to thank Emily. And if you are not already subscribed to our e-newsletter, I encourage you to do that, because then you will be the first person, along with everyone else who gets the email, to find out what new programs we have coming up. We have a lot of new stuff, some new tools and resources, and there's programs you can join if you're looking to do that as well. So we loved having everyone on with us today. Thank you so much. Emily, thank you so much. And Roy, who's not feeling well, who's managing this behind the scenes. Thank you, Roy, for joining us today and helping us out. Have a great day and happy cooking, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, Tracie. Bye, everybody.
Bye.